Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Agenda has been approved. Next up, the approval of the minutes for the October 28th meeting, of the regular meeting. A motion to approve. So moved. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Next up, announcement of email motion votes by John Latham.
On November 10th, 2023, the board conducted an email vote that was unanimous to remove Budget and Finance Committee member Yvette Tanis, hope I'm saying the name right, for lack of meeting attendance. A letter has been issued given the committee has been unable to contact Ms. Tanis.
Thank you, John. Remarks. I first want to thank John and his team for all the hard work and continuous work that he's done for the association. And I also want to once again thank the committee members that are out there dedicating their time to the committee and to the association and the hard work that they do throughout the community. Also want to remind everybody now that we are in the holiday season to be safe. There are a little bit more hazards that are out there with leaves. So please mind that, mind the pedestrians that are out there as well doing their walks. Let's just take some extra precautions during this fall season. So thank you for that. John, report.
Hey, thank you, Rick. We'll start off with the initiatives page. First, I just wanted a couple of pictures. We've been adding that. Thank you to all the homeowners that send them in this week. It was this month, Patty and Faye Jeffrey. Beautiful pictures. We have something special here. Those pictures definitely show it. Turn the page. Okay, so the initiative I want to talk about, I want to highlight bulkheads, drainage, and roads. There's over $1.5 million spend that will take place between now and the end of the year. I'll talk more on that, and as well as updates on the other items. And then Linda will take you through the last three. Turn the page. All right, Racket Center. Let's talk about that. There's been a lot on that. Going back to the infamous manifesto by management a couple of months ago, there were three main items that they wanted, which were in the works: a fence, a three-wheeler to rake the courts, which was already in process, as well as a shed, which we have ordered. What I'm pointing out here is the fence. The now director wanted a fence, and I didn't disagree with that because he was telling me that people were circumventing paying. So we put this fence in. We enhanced the fence we had. I can report to this association and to this board that as of this morning, I just received an email about half an hour ago that people are climbing over the fence. So, you know, I will readdress it. The only thing I can say is I guarantee that the same people that are saying that the cost to play is probably expensive and we don't put enough in there. So unfortunately, I have to report that. We will look at it. We're looking at cameras, but you can see that fence is a hefty fence. Apparently, it's being circumvented. All right, that's enough on that. The cost for that was $2,200. I had received an estimate of $40,000 if we went with the aluminum. We thought this would work. They probably would have scaled that also. Turn the page. Leaf collection. I just heard Rick talk about it. I do want to highlight some stuff there that has been out there since last year. Bagged leaves will be picked up by Republic during regularly scheduled trash collection days, 4 bags. Public Works will pick up bagged leaves from November 27th to December 29th, opposite Republic Services collection days. We're receiving a lot of emails on that and info, asking questions on it. That is posted in numerous places. Some of the places that we do post that information is
the website, social media, pages.
So it is out there, but I felt to put this here. And also, yard waste can be dropped off to the Public Works yard, open on Wednesdays from 8 to 3. Also open from November 27th to December 30th, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Loose or in bag, paper bags only. Must have free sticker, which can be returned at Public Works. Just a reminder, and I'm seeing it even as I drove here on Ocean Parkway today, the leaf vacuum program has ended. You will need to back your leaves for pickup. I did see along Ocean Parkway, people were still piling the leaves up on the side of the road. If you bag them, we'll take them away immediately. We did reallocate. That was not a savings. We reallocated that part of our budget to drainage, which I'll talk more about, and it's definitely been effective. Turn the page. Okay, so I mentioned bulkheads, roads, drainage. So here's the bulkheads. These are the addresses or the areas that they will be working on. This has all been approved. I've reported this before. They actually are working on it. Our estimate is to be completed, obviously, by the end of April. So far, all updates that I've received, we will be. Cost is approximately $1 million. Staying on track with that. Turn the page. The drainage, I talked a little bit about that before. The drainage program we've had for the last 3, 4, 5 years has been very successful. We continue on that, and that's what I want to update here. One of the biggest wins, besides constant maintenance of the ditches, is this lining of pipes. We do have Pelican. We are working with them. We're in contact with Pelican, who's done the lining the last 2 years. They will be coming in. We are trying to get bids to substantiate the prices, but there's your estimate. Actually, it's coming in around $232,000. Looking at about 20 pipes. I'll have more on that next time. This has been a big win. Turn the page. So the roads are approved by the board. Approximately rate of 56,000. It's a little less than 3 miles. That should be starting shortly. All indications are that we'll have it in before the bad weather. Turn the page. So again, those 3 items over $1.5 million to spend. Firehouse, let me just. Okay, so an update on that. I said I would come forward with the work group. Here's the news that we have. The work group was formed for a new OPVFD firehouse in June of 2022. With the task that I've received, or we received from the board back then, I have to say, based upon current events in the last meeting, there was an update at the firehouse in their big bays. And based upon that and what's going forward, and I'm sure it's all productive, I have disbanded the work group for phase 1. Right now, this is the best part of my job, is recognizing people. And that's what I want to do now. And I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. So the work group members that I had reached out to and always answered the call, I want to start off with Ted Maroney. Ted Maroney helped lead it. He worked on the MOU and the contract drafts. I thought he did a great job. I thought he was very fair. So Ted led that part. He has a lot of background history with Ocean Pines. He was a prior board member. Definitely worked on 2017. I was a part of it with all the ambulances and all that. So thank you, Ted. Also, as far as finance, construction estimates, sketches, we have a very good playbook on that, similar to what we did with the clubhouse. That work is there for anybody that wants to proceed with it, to utilize it. We will certainly work with them on it. The people I want to recognize on that, obviously, the GM worked on it, Eddie Wells, Linda Martin, Steve Phillips, Frank Brown. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. I did ask Bill Stamp to come in. Bill has a lot of history with the firehouse, with Ocean Pines, with this building. Bill liked everything that we had done on it. Of course, Marvin, we're going to miss Marvin. So there's been a lot of feedback on that. Like I said, that playbook, all the work that we've done on it is available for anybody going forward on whatever route that everybody takes. And then, of course, the representatives, Steve Grunwald and Dave Van Gaspok, thank you to them. They represented OPVFD during the process the whole year. So I thought it was a win. Of course, everything is there. If we are tasked with something else, I would definitely bring back some different team. But I believe we met all our objectives.
Yep.
Yeah, Rick, does the
Yep,
board
yep,
agree?
yep.
Okay. Hopefully everybody else does. Turn the page. Budget 2024-25. Okay, so usually at this time, I can tell you that we are still on track. All the budget binders, proposed budget will be given out before the holiday, December 25th, as it's been done in the past. It's pretty much complete. We are going through some items. Obviously, some items have just changed. I can tell you everything's on track from where I've been updating budget and finance and what the team has been doing. What we're looking at prospectively or tentatively for the review, and hopefully Budget and Finance gets back and agrees to these dates, is Budget and Finance review January 2nd to 3rd. And we've been doing it in 2 days. Board review January 11th and 12th. We've been doing that actually in 1 day. So I'm just going to ask the board and Budget and Finance, when they get a chance, to please get back to me or to Linda on those dates. And then, of course, there'll be the town hall. Linda checked it. It's usually February 7th. We'll be doing that. That's pretty much what I have in that. So on track. Okay. Holidays, the holidays goes with beautification. There's a lot being done already. We're certainly getting input and pictures and thanks, especially on the Southgate tree that apparently was put in the other day. So Tony and his crew put it in and people are sending me pictures of it lit up. So we have increased, as we said we would, all holiday decorations. We now have 7 trees, 5 artificial and 2 live. You'll see both sides of the pond at Northgate with trees in there. And we'll have the two trees lit, one near the north gate, the real trees, and as well as the one in Southgate. So we tried to balance it out. We'll get 3 more trees on the bottom corner there. Public Works has done a great job. I instructed them to go forward to increase the amount of decorations. You can see what they're doing. On the left is the infamous Santa house, which they did a lot of work on to get that up to speed. And thanks to Ed Miller and his team. From the page. Okay, Linda.
Is taking part of being Santa to Senior with Hempstead. For any information, it's on the slide there. Aquatics has the Angel Tree as in previous years. You can call the Sports Corps pool for more information. Administration is also setting up Angel Tree. We just got the family name and the children's names and gifts they want. So we'll be setting that up this week. Hometown Christmas tree lighting, just as a reminder, is next Saturday, November 25th at 6:30 at Lake Forest Park. You can register for Light Up in the Pines, November 20th through December 8th through info@oceanpines.org. And for any more information, just visit the Ocean Pines website. RFP for trash service, current trash and recycling contract ends December 31st. We did receive 3 bids. All bids are being reviewed and the contract should be forwarded to the board and awarded sometime in December.
So I just want to add something. Thank you, Linda. Linda's doing a lot of work on that. One of the bids, or one of them, again, a little different than what you've seen in the past. One of the contractors is looking at basically mechanical, where you would see the big arm of the truck now come and pick up the waste bins or the recycle bins. So it would kind of like eliminate the person jumping off the truck. They're going that route. So that is in one of the bids. If that would be one of the contractors picked, obviously there would be new bins that would have to be distributed by them, and it's built into the cost. Okay, so just to give a heads up on that. And the other thing on this is we do have to look at past experience with different contractors. Definitely, I had one person that every time with a contract, apparently in the past, there was a lot of trouble with oil spills from certain suppliers and everything. So Linda and her team is addressing that. We are addressing that with each bid on the page.
CPI violations, 155 new violations this month. There are currently 67 legal, which will be resent first letters starting next week. Reminder letters, 77 violations have been complied out. That remains 200 still open. Just a reminder, I know that comes up with a question on what you need a permit for. If you have any questions, please just contact info@oceanpines.org. As you know, we have the declaration of restrictions and guidelines. If you can't find the information there, just email info@oceanpines.org. But we do get that question a lot, and you're in a homeowners association, so most likely everything needs a permit. So. Majority still open in drainage, 60, and we're still working with contract. So we have total 129 still open at the end of October. And if you have any questions, email info@oceanpines.org or 410-641-7717.
Linda, let me just jump in on that. One thing just on that, I'll put the numbers are there. But what I noticed from reading the info that we received now versus years ago, they're more asking questions, information, or even advice from complaints and people very upset. You do have that, but nowhere near the percentage we had. They're more shifting to very positive, and what I feel constructive type of emails or asking for information, which is also a good sign. Compliment to Linda and the team. Turn the page. Financials. Okay, so we continue to roll along with favorability. Obviously, it's 93,000 for the month of October, came in a little higher than what I was expecting, but all positive. Let me highlight to you where that positive, favorable variation came from just at a high level. So it is a mix. It's a mix of revenue increases as well as expense decreases. But let me just peel that onion a little more. On the revenue side, I continue to use the word organic, especially when it's new sales or record-breaking revenue in any of the amenities. Golf certainly continues that way. So there's a lot of positive there on the revenue in golf. There was positive, favorable results for the month in the yacht club, which was a good sign. The expenses are favorable as up there. Again, it was decrease in service and supplies at the yacht club. Public Works was down on repairs and maintenance. We do have favorability in payroll, but I have to tell you, and based on what I observed this week, I was down at the marina. I saw 4 new laborers or workers from Public Works working down there. So we have been able now to fill the positions I've been telling you about for a year and a half. We're feeling good about that. Obviously, there's a time frame to get them up to speed. But credit to Eddie and Noby, they're training them, and I think we'll see that. In the meantime, we continue to reallocate to contract resources, which we're having a lot of success with. All right, 93,000 to the favor. Turn the page. All right, so that's the detail. Obviously, the police, we do have open positions. A lot of that, as I've mentioned in the past, is more on the benefits side. If there was a saving in salaries, it's being offset by an increase in overtime. We do have a gentleman starting, I believe, in January. And I know the chief is very high on that. Yacht club, I mentioned that, golf ops, recreation parks, credit to Debbie and the team up there. I see some good results for the last month. Racket sports, well, we're gonna look more into that. It's about what I have here. I have work to do there. Aquatics, Linda and Michelle are doing a great job there, and continue. The grill, we received some unfavorability this month, kind of surprised. I was told that it was because of golf outside play was down, which we were trending, but then it did pick up. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we're all looking at that for next year. Okay, there's your 93,000. Turn the page for year to date. Year to date, 578,000. To put that in perspective, last year we are down a little bit, but keep in mind, as I've mentioned, every year we've increased the budget. Yes, we've increased the budget on what we spend. So obviously, then you're going to have different favorability, especially for golf and a couple of the other amenities. We will continue to increase the budget side of spend. Right, everybody understand with that? Because I am getting questions. Where's the surplus going? The surplus is going in a lot of places, but that's just one of them. All right, 578 to the favorable. The expenses were a little higher when you look at it year to date. That's a breakdown. We're supposed to do that. We do it. Golf, the police is obviously a big number, but across the board everywhere else, the marinas we've explained about, he had 95 small craft advisories, which is the most I ever heard since I've been here. And it did affect, unfortunately, a lot of the rain came Friday nights. So it did affect the yacht club to some degree. So we're looking for a positive next year. That's pretty much it, 578 to the positive. All right, so on this, and Steve will probably in the next couple of months, but we're just showing here for reference for everybody on the reserves. We continue to be increasing our reserves. Obviously, that'll be reviewed big time with BNF and everybody else during the budget process. Obviously, some things will affect it based upon the capital that we look to spend. And what we're looking at, and there will be an update with DMA. I'll talk to Doug Parks, the chair of BNF, but I am going to bring them in probably before the next budget cycle. We are in line with the new laws and the new compliance. Turn the page. All right, so this is a really good schedule. Steve does this for me, he does it for us, the association. Just gives you an estimate, a forecast where we're going to be, tying in all the spend that we've done so far, as well as the projected spend that you heard me talk about down at the bottom. All right, that's pretty much it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Monica, treasurer's report.
Thank you. As of October 31st, the association had approximately 17.4 million in cash. Cash increased 0.7 million from the same time last year. Cash decreased $600,000 from September of this year. We have 11.2 million invested in CDARS. We realized 54,000 in interest income in the month of October. We have 6.2 million in insured sweep accounts, treasury bills, money market, and other operating accounts diversified between 2 local banks.
Thank you, Martha.
You're
Appreciate it. Next up, public comments. Those members who wish to make public comments, please step forward with your name and address. So I open the floor up to public comments at this time.
Morning, my name is Gene Ringstorff. I live at 5 McAfee Court in the park. In the October edition of Progress, there was a discussion about a 1,000 square foot addition to the administration building for a new boardroom. And in that article, it mentioned that the funding would come out of the replacement capital fund because you're replacing a boardroom. As a working on the Budget and Finance Committee previously in my career for 9 years, and your last OPA Assistant Treasurer, non-employee, I would give you the professional opinion that that's not correct. You are not replacing a boardroom. You are adding 1,000 square feet to a building. That is new addition. Let me give you an example. If you had 7 police cars, one of them designated as a police car for the chief, and you wanted to give the chief a new car, there's 2 ways to do it. You would replace the current car, which means you get rid of the car and you replaced it with a new car. You still have 7 cars, or you could buy an additional car and you say that is now is designated as the chief's car. You wind up with 8 cars instead of 7. In the case of this addition, you're going to add another 1,000 square feet to a structure. You're designating it as a boardroom, but you haven't removed the old boardroom. So in the old boardroom, it's just a designation of a physical room. So I believe that has to come out of new capital. That's my professional opinion. Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Just in response, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Just so for yourself and the rest of the association members, while that is a nice idea as far as for having a new boardroom, it is not a priority for this board at this present time. But as far as how you explained, I do appreciate that. If it does come to a point where this topic of a new boardroom, that is something that collectively the board will present, and at the time we'll move forward with it. But that at the moment, despite what you may or may not have heard, that is not one of our priorities on our agenda.
I read that as not a priority. I'm always focusing on the funding.
Go ahead, John.
So first of all, Gene, thank you for your feedback. And if anybody doesn't know, Gene's probably one of the first people I met down here in Ocean Pines, probably go back 15, 20 years. Respect Gene's accounting, finance, his contributions to budget and finance, and I'm glad he's saying that. I do have a question for you, Gene, though. First of all, as Rick said, there's nowhere in the priorities that have come out of here what I talk about, well, the board on this, but I respect that you're coming forward. But I have a question for you. We had an upstairs here. We have a room here that we use for board meetings. How do you look at that when we say, first of all, there's nowhere that we're saying we need 1,000 feet, but what if we did something like that?
You mean?
We had upstairs that was used for board meetings. We have this room, which is being utilized for board meetings. Wouldn't it be a replacement for that? Just asking.
No.
No? Okay.
It already exists in your inventory, right?
This room?
Yeah.
Yes, just like a boardroom does.
Yeah, but you've designated it as a boardroom. You could put it. Yeah, I'm
And if
just
we ever
saying.
do it, and you're here, I'm definitely gonna reach out to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a happy Thanksgiving and gobble to you.
You too as well. Me too, dude. Any other public comment?
Marlene Ott, 1 Warbler Court, resident here since this was a dirt road into the woods. I just have a question, and that is, it's my remembering, you may remember, I believe there's supposed to be a life ring at the lakes and ponds, and I believe they were called Sam's rings because that young man, 9 years old, perished at Northside Park. in Ocean City, but because of that, I believe there was a some kind of a request or mandate to have those life rings at the different lakes. So that if someone, and this young man, it was ice skim on it and he got out there then. We also had an incident at one of the other lakes in Ocean Pines many, many years ago where that was the same thing. Young man fell through the ice and was rescued. And because of that, Mr. Marvinstein gave the volunteer fire department a wave runner or something to rescue in the future. That was just a question. And the other thing is, and I believe I saw on here, the environmental and natural assets. I wasn't sure which place to go to, but I would like to start maybe even a contest or just something to name our lakes and ponds, because we all say Southgate Lake, Northside Park, whatever. But I think it would be nice to, my idea is to maybe honor Colonel John King, who was our first community manager, with a name at the large, and I don't know the difference between a lake and a pond, but that would be one. And there's an island in the middle of the lake that's back there that you can see from Route 90. It's absolutely gorgeous. So just the idea that we would have a name and perhaps honor somebody that was important in the development and history of Ocean Pines. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Any other public comments?
Good morning. My name is Laura Pangratz. I live at 2 Harpoon Road. I vote for a 1 p.m. meeting. No, I'm sorry. I am not a morning person. However, I think I can put my thoughts together. I am looking forward to hearing the presentation about the electronic signage, in the sense that I still think there's missing information that the public does not, our residents do not know. I personally am still not in favor of them. What neighborhood have you ever been to that has an electronic sign welcoming them into the neighborhood, like a home development? Yes, we are a business because we are so big and we have amenities that are open to the public, and I get that. Maybe consider after hearing the presentation where the potential locations might be. I might be more receptive to it. However, I think it would be nice if it's going to have to go forward, and that the majority of us that don't really want it and don't have a say in it, put it in a location near one of the amenities then, or in the, but not at either of the gates. I feel like that would change the aesthetics of coming into my home. Now I'm coming into a business complex, and you've already heard me talk about the cost of expenses and maintenance and what happens at one time. Either a kid or Mother Nature has a storm and it gets broken. Now we have to fix it, and I'm, like I said, I am open-minded and willing to hear looking forward to hearing the presentation, because we've been asking for it. So I think I appreciate the time that probably has gone into all of this, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of that information. Sound-wise today is a little bit better than last month because there's no music that's distracting me. But I am struggling to hear the public comments because, unfortunately, we all got to face that way, and we can't face the people behind us. So the sound goes this way for that. So I will probably have to rewatch the meeting like I usually do anyway, to be able to hear some of the other comments made. So I appreciate us keep working on fine tuning that. So I think that's it for this month. So very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Laura.
Any more public comments?
Colette Horn, 35 Sundial. I'm here as an avid bicyclist to listen intently to the presentation we'll receive about biking. As a 12-month year-round biker, I will report that in the past year, I've had 2 bicycle mishaps that I would directly attribute to the absence of a bike lane in Ocean Pines along the Parkway. One of which involved a collision with a trash truck, which fortunately I survived with minimal damage. So I am here to fully support anything that will improve bicycling safety. Hopefully that may include at some point in the future to have a bike lane, at least along Ocean Parkway. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Any other public comments?
Cheryl Jacobs, good morning,
Good morning.
1223 Carrollton Lane. I feel compelled to speak, given what the previous community member said about the electronic signage. I'm so happy that finally people will see, although we have presented it in the past, Cindy Hoffman did a great job of putting it in paper in the past, but finally people will see what we're really talking about. And it is not commercial at all. If you have a problem currently with coming into the North Gate and the sign that is there currently, which has a message that has to be changed manually at a cost and a map, if you have a problem with that, you'll continue to have a problem with electronic signage because it's going to look exactly the same. No difference whatsoever. And I'm sure as more people see Elaine's presentation today, they're going to understand what we have been talking about for a number of years. And hopefully they will understand that we have never, ever wanted a commercial type sign. What we want is simply the ability to have the message changed quickly, efficiently, and in a safe manner. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Any other public comments? We'll go ahead and close the floor for public comments. Capital requests, we have none. CPI violations, none. Unfinished business, we have Patty Stevens to come forward and who is working with the Oakland Pines Community Bike and Pedestrian Safety and Access Working Group. Come up and give us a little bit of update. Thanks for coming out, Patty.
Good morning. Thank you so much to the board. I'm the chair of the Worcester County Bike and Pedestrian Coalition, and I also am an appointee by the governor to the Maryland Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, which I represent the Eastern Shore. And through that work that I've been doing for the last several years at both the state level and the county level, I have learned a lot about what other communities around the state and indeed the country are doing to address what is a national trend. And Colette spoke to it personally, the incidence of increases of bicycle and pedestrian accidents and indeed fatalities is a national trend. And you can see it's not a very great map. I cut that from a state map. You can see our community of Ocean Pines. And if I were able to blow it up for you, all those little dots, the red dots are pedestrian serious accidents or fatalities. The yellow dots, bicycles, are bicycle fatalities and serious incidents. They have increased across the nation. They've increased in our community. What we know, what I've learned through participating in many, many webinars, participating at the state level with Maryland State Highway Administration and MDOT, is that there are 3 ways we can address making our roads safer, our communities safer, whether it's highway roads or whether it's neighborhood roads. It's through education of both the drivers, the walkers, and the pedestrians on how to share roads safely. It's through engineering both of the trails and pathways, creating alternative ways for people to get around in communities that aren't on the road, but where people are sharing the road. There are engineering strategies that can be done to roads that are in many cases simple and not costly. Narrowing lanes, reducing speed limits, marking lanes clearly that they're for pedestrians and cyclists. And there are engineering strategies, and I'm an error. I put education twice on this slide. The third E is supposed to be enforcement, and that's enforcement where we have laws, where we have limits for speed limits, where we have lanes that people are not supposed to park their cars or put their junk in, that are supposed to be for pedestrians and bicyclists, enforcing that. And I know that Chief Robinson, I see them around, I see the police cars, and I'm grateful for them because I'm, like Colette, an avid cyclist. In our community, many people move here because they want to be able to have an active lifestyle, to walk and to bike safely, not just for recreation, but you have many people that bike and walk to work. We see them going to the Food Lion. We see them going out on their bikes, the young men that ride their bikes through my neighborhood to go work at the Mexican restaurant. To people that ride their bikes, how many of you see them riding up 589 to go to jobs at Walmart and McDonald's on their bikes early in the morning, late at night? So working, what has worked in the county, and we've made great progress through the Bike and Pedestrian Coalition at the county level. Over the last 3 years, we now have all the towns, Berlin, Snow Hill, Ocean City, Pocomoke City, the South Point Association. Debbie has participated from the Ocean Pines Association, and now Pam McGregor is participating. We have come up with, each of these communities has developed their own bike and pedestrian safety and access plan. And now through a grant that I wrote and that the county received, there is a contractor, Mead and Hunt, which is a national engineering firm that has been contracted by Worcester County to develop a countywide trails and greenways plan. And that's some of the opportunity. They will design and help work with our participating group. We had a kickoff meeting last 2 weeks ago to make connections into communities, but their countywide planning will not work on the opportunities for trails and pathways within the community. Each community has to do that themselves. And so the suggestion that I brought forward to the general manager, and he was very receptive to, was, and I've talked to Carrie Bunting at the Ocean Pines Chamber of Commerce because her businesses want to see this. They want to create communities we know that are walkable and bikeable, are better for business. People that could, I see it when the little ice cream stand opened near Don's at the Southgate Shopping Center. Wonderfully saw families and sometimes groups of small children walking in the afternoon and even at dusk through the summer down Ocean Parkway to cross to that shopping center. But there's no crosswalk there. And that's just one example. And, you know, there are a number of places where trails cross roads. The Robin Hood Trail crosses 5 roads. There's no markings on those roads. As people come out of the woods walking their dogs or in some cases riding their bikes, they come out onto roads and there's nothing to tell the drivers that there's a trail there. So there are simple things that we can do within Ocean Pines. My proposal was to convene a work group that included the business community, residents, public safety. There are grants through the state for public safety. There are grants for sidewalks and trails that can be built. The great news is that Ocean Pines has the authority and the responsibility to manage all of our roads. We don't have to go, and Commissioner Bertino told me in no uncertain terms, it is not the county's responsibility to take care of your roads. You take care of your. And so that's it to me. Thank you very much. We can take care of our own roads. That also means we don't have to ask for permission, except where it's an intersection that crosses a county road or a state road. And so I think that's a bonus. That's a good thing for Ocean Pines. It's a lot harder when you have to go through the county and the state to get permission. So we have that opportunity. The other big opportunity that we have that you've heard me speak about before is the Route 90 bridge. That bridge study continues as a result of the input given by communities, Ocean Pines, Ocean City, all around Worcester County. People said loudly and clearly, we want to have bike and pedestrian access on that bridge. They heard it. They released the Pell study in February of last month with 4 different options for that bridge to be redesigned or redeveloped. All of them included an option for bike and pedestrian access. You can find it online. I put the link to it. It's at the library. I put a copy at the library. But it's only going to be the lane on the bridge. We still have to get people to the bridge, right? And so we've talked before here in a previous meeting several years ago about the opportunity to build a Northgate to Southgate connection. A trail along much of the property is owned by Ocean Pines. Some of it is owned by the hospital. Some of it is owned by a private swath, and part of it is actually a DOT right of way that was left over from when the bridge was first built. There are funds that we could get to work on this trail, but it says the entity has to acquire rights of way to all the parcels. So that's why I propose that we have somebody like Mickey Loeb, who's a realtor, who is an avid cyclist and also knows the real estate market, on that committee. The other, this is my dream, that we can connect our Northgate and Southgate community so people can safely get between our community. And by the way, the bridge is in the middle, so they can get to the bridge. And when the bike and pedestrian path is there, to go over the bridge into Ocean City to our beach club on a bike. That's what I thought we could do when we moved here to our community. So the the work group has been convened. It will include Pam McGregor, who is on the Maryland State Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Mickey Loeb from Berkshire Hathaway Realty, Dr. Paul Rogers, who is a retired pediatric neurologist who also sits on the state's Youth Fatality Review Committee. He is the one that reviews accidents that happen and determines what the safety and injury factors were as a result. So he'll be a very valuable perspective. And the fourth person, his name, I was Pam McGregor. Oh, Carrie Bunting from the Ocean Pines Chamber of Commerce. And then the general manager has allocated the time of Chief Robinson, who will be tremendously valuable from the enforcement and the safety side, and Eddie Wells from the opportunity for how we can improve our existing trails, the crosswalk kinds of things. So we're keeping it small at this point. We have a kickoff meeting planned this week and plan to, bring ideas and proposals for both immediate opportunities that can be done without significant cost or without a big statewide study. But there may be a time in the future where there is an opportunity with, for example, this north to Southgate trail, where it may require some contracting support to do that. But that is work that's going forward. I think it will be very valuable for Ocean Pines to be working on this while the county is doing their countywide greenways and trails plan, and while the state is working on the Route 90 bridge plans. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions.
That's Steve.
Probably sort of two questions. Of course, when I was younger, I always remember they used to tell us to wear white at night. Nobody does that anymore, but that would be maybe something we'll work on the education side, but leave that aside for a moment. In terms of the North and Southgate connector, is there land where the Tidal Health campuses that would work as well?
That would be one of the conversations. You mean at the I get Tidal and AGH. AGH is the one that's near Northgate, right? Tidal Health is that's the opposite. Tidal is the one that's near Northgate. Yes, I absolutely think there's actually, and I rode my bike through it once by accident. I thought you could get through to the neighborhood, and I rode my bike from the Northgate through that parking lot back. And you come to a house, but I believe there's a way that we could do that connection. It would require a land study. It would require some aerial GIS looking, but the parcel, at least from the Northgate to all the way to the edge of the 90 bridge, I think is absolutely acquirable. And where I came from in Fairfax County, if you know the Dulles Toll Road that goes out to the airport, it's very much like the 90 bridge ramp. And there are two side ramps like that. They put up, and it's a hugely heavily trafficked bicycle trail. They put up yellow blinking lines that the cyclist comes to and pushes a button, and it alerts the people that there's someone that's going to cross, and then you cross. And that may be the interim until when the bridge is redesigned. My hope is that there would be an actual through path. Right. But for the time being, there are ways that you can do with signage and marking and lighting to make a safe crossing across those two ramps, which is the trickiest part to do. But a lot of the other part of the trail is land that I believe could be acquired for easement.
And the different grants that might be available. Ocean Pines is not a municipality, it's a homeowners association, and our ability to tap into certain financial relief in different areas through the state is hampered or prohibited because of that. So I have a third question. My second question is, the type of grants you're talking about, do they have that sort of limitation, or maybe you don't know yet? but-
No, I do know. That was the cause of my conversation with Commissioner Bertino, who, I went through the county, assuming, as you said, because where I came from in Virginia, homeowners associations could not apply for state grants that had to go through a county entity. So I went through, Dallas Baker and Public Works, assuming that was the way that Ocean Pines would have to go to apply for these sidewalk and bicycle retrofit grants that Dan Wilson at District 1 State Highway told me we should look into. And so when I went through that way, I was told quite firmly that Ocean Pines would, it was not, the county is not responsible for our opportunities, and that Ocean Pines has in the past received direct money from State Highway for roads, and that was our problem and we should take care of it. So, that was my happy takeaway. I didn't take the delivery, but
One more question, if I may. I'm just curious, as to where we are with Route 90.
Mhm.
Can you tell us what the bridge that goes over Ocean Parkway is, where that fits? Is that going to be changed, modified?
well,
removed?
here's what I would encourage all of you to do. If you haven't read, and I know you get tons of things to read, that report, which is online, is the best public report on transportation I've ever read. It's very easy to read, and it specifically calls out about 5 Ocean Pines things, including this golf club, as historic entities, as entities of impact that should be considered as that bridge is developed. And the report says in it, the state highway planners should work closely with the community of Ocean Pines in considering the impact to their community and the access to the bridge. So they didn't, in the plan, there are still four versions in the plan of routes, 2 ways going one way, two going the other way, reversing lanes. They have come up with what the 2 priorities are, but there's not a specific design yet. They are currently in the process of working on the next phase. I think it's been held up a little bit because I also sit on the new Transportation Revenue and Infrastructure Need Commission that Governor Moore created, and there is a significant shortfall in transportation money because it's based on the gas tax, and the gas revenue has declined significantly through more efficient cars and less driving. So there is a whole separate strategy to try to address the shortfall in transportation projects. Right. So I think that the Route 90 bridge planning, to my knowledge, it still shows on the website as in the next phase of engineering and design, but it's, I believe, in a little bit slower mode till they figure out this bigger financial financing issue.
John, you have a question?
I just have first of all, I have to say, and I know you're doing a lot of work on this, it's a very constructive initiative. But one thing I do want to say is I want to thank you for working through the GM office. It helps me to allocate and make sure all the resources are marching in the same direction, as opposed to somebody that usually in these type of situations are working around the GM. It causes me a lot of, well, actually, it seems like watching wooden soldiers. So compliment to you, compliment to this constructive initiative, and we are working with you, whatever we can do.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm excited about it. Anyone else? Thanks very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business. We have a second reading of the revision of resolution C02, Agricultural Review Committee by Elaine Brady.
Yes, CO2, there weren't any amendments or revisions that anybody has requested. So I'd like to see us move ahead and vote on that motion.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the second reading of the revision of C02? John, you have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? No.
Can I just, this is a form question, that's all it is. The last page on C02 does not appear to have the signature requirements that we have on the other changes to our resolutions. That's just an oversight. I assume they will be added.
Yes, it'll be added.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be added.
It's on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. So any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Passing of resolution C02 of the Architectural Review Committee is passed. Next, we have a second reading of the revision of resolution M01, the policy and compliance procedures for the declaration of restrictions and the art guidelines violations. Elaine Brady.
Committee, they reviewed it, made a couple of suggestions. As you'll see in the red line, Bruce made a couple of changes to it to, you know, for whatever he felt was necessary based upon those suggestions. So I'd like to see us pass that. I do know that there's a suggested amendment to the resolution by Steve. And we'll have to take a look at whether we want to adopt that as well. My concern, Jeff, do we need to ask for a discussion?
Yeah, we'll have a discussion on that.
Okay.
First, we want to do a motion to approve as written M01 that has been presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion? Jeffrey?
Rick, I just want to take 1 minute just to remind the association of what, and more importantly, why we're doing this. What we're doing is, MO1 is our policy on how we rectify violations to our declarations of restrictions and to violations of our Architectural Review Committee guidelines. Well, what we did was streamline the process. And then we changed some responsibilities from the Architectural Review Committee to the Board of Directors. I think more importantly is, why are you doing this? Well, we talked about, it's not one of our priorities to build a new boardroom right now, but Rick has been very good, and you can find some of our priorities that you've listed here in this report. And one of those priorities is to maintain the beautification of this special community that we have. And what the plans behind that priority, one of them is to revamp MO1. And I just wanted to take the time to connect the two, so the association knows what we're doing.
Great. Thanks you. Thanks, Jeff.
Perfectly stated, Jeff.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
And just, as Jeff had stated, that we're also having to come into compliance with the Maryland HOA Act. There were a lot of board responsibilities that at some point were handed over to the art committee, which really in our DRs does not allow. So we're just rewriting the ship, let's say, on the violations and how they're processed and handled, along with, again, as Jeff said, the streamlining of that document. So it's very clear to both our homeowners and, to when we have to make any board actions, exactly what you have to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just made for a much cleaner document.
Thanks, Rick. I have an amendment which I've distributed to the members and to council and to John and Linda as well. I agree with the comments. I mean, the goal is a good goal. It lends, I think, a lot more oomph to enforcing our DRs and our architectural guidelines. And at the first reading, I made the point that it seemed to me it would be worthwhile to make sure that the party that would be cited in this process has at least information sufficient for them to defend a position if they felt it had to be defended. Now, I will say quite honestly, let me backtrack 1 second. My amendment basically says that when the notice goes out to the offended party, offensive party, maybe the landowner, the lot owner, who's in question, that they are informed that they have the right to have someone join them in their presentation to the board when the hearing takes place, and that they have the right to request a closed meeting. They have to state the reasons for the closed meeting, and the board would have to decide on that request based upon both statute and our own governing bodies. It simply says that the lot owner who is in question has the burden to be able to make these two requests or provide that information to the board prior to the hearing. That's all it says. No great surprise. This is at first reading, I made these points broadly. Over the deliberations over the last month or so, we've had emails bouncing back and forth between the board members and council and myself on this issue. I think Bruce's initial take on what I had originally drafted was accurate. I said so. I made the changes that he requested. So we are simply at this point saying that the individual should make those requests after being informed that your hearing is scheduled. These are your rights. This is what, or this is how you should proceed. This is what you should do. The last set of comments that we got back, that I got back, at least that I saw, was on the one issue relating to whether the meeting should be opened or closed, that staff are overworked and clearly underpaid staff should ask the question whether or not they want the meeting open or closed. My view is that burden should rest with the homeowner to make that request when they're informed they can make that request. The issue of who should be there, my assumption is if it ever got to that point, 9 times out of 10, the person there would be an attorney, but it maybe there's other issues that would crop up and I don't know what they would be. That would require someone else to be able to help in the presentation. So I talked about a person, not a council. But regardless, the lot owner still has the responsibility to do so. The suggestion from Bruce was, well, we don't know what the state is going to say. And admittedly, writing by the seat of my pants, I would say I would find it almost impossible to believe that where you run the risk of having to pay for repairs, losing the right to vote, and losing access to amenities that you pay for, that the state of Maryland is going to say, no, you have no right to have counsel present at all, or anybody else to assist you in the hearing. So all this is information going to the lot owner. I think it improves without hampering the process. I think it's a lot fairer. And while I don't think either issue would crop up very often, if it cropped up and we handled it wrong, we would have a problem going down the road from that's going forward. So I think I'm going to vote for the resolution that's changed, but I do think this is an improvement. So I would ask my colleagues to join me in that effort.
I think I'd like to just add to that discussion if that's okay. I don't have a problem with the suggestions that you have. I just feel, one, that it's in the wrong document, that the second notice that goes out is really just a reminder to the homeowner that they need to attend to the violations. After that point, if a resident has not cleaned up their property, and they feel they have a valid reason or for whatever, they are allowed at that point to ask for the hearing. Once they do that, we will be notifying them of date and time of that hearing, and it just seems it's much more appropriate to be in that letter to them, or however we're communicating to them at the date and the time, rather than the second letter. I think it's also confusing for folks who are simply getting the first letter of a warning, the second letter of a warning, and we're talking about some hearing that they haven't even asked for yet. So I just think that the information is premature by being in the second letter.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Council, do you have any comment on that?
Well, just to provide a little more information as far as what my views and recommendations were. I think with the second notice, my view is that the OPA should be as close to adherent with what the statute requires as possible and not really go beyond that. Certainly not do less than that. So the second notice should provide advice of the rights that exist under the statute and really should do no more than that. It should be explanatory as to what the next steps are going to be and vis-a-vis the hearing. But it should be limited to that. And as far as having somebody present with the alleged violator, that's the term of the statute, with the alleged violator at the hearing, my view is certainly if they want counsel there, then that they should have the ability to have counsel there representing them at the hearing. And I've told the board that, and I think the board's view is that if somebody wants to have an attorney there, they can have an attorney there. I don't think that needs to be in the second notice. As far as having some other person, which I think is the suggestion of the resolution, having some other non-lawyer person sort of represent them at the hearing, I don't know what that would necessarily look like. There would be lots of permutations of that. And it's not a right that somebody has. It's the alleged violator that has the obligation to present evidence and testimony and so forth at the hearing. So again, advising the alleged violator that they had, or suggesting that they have the right to have another person there, just goes beyond what the statute contemplates. What I have said in that vein is if because of disability or language limitations or something like that, an alleged violator needs the assistance of a family member or a relative or even a translator, that can be dealt with on a case-by-case basis as these hearings, and hopefully infrequently as these hearings are happening, and then as they unfold and the necessities for each of the hearings unfold. So I think those are operational things that can be handled and administrative things that can be handled in the flow of putting on a hearing rather than incorporating all of the contemplated issues like that into, or some of them into the second notice letter. So that's my view of the issue.
If I may, couple of observations. I have no problem if you want to tell me where, other than in the second notice, this information should be included. I have no problem in accepting a friendly amendment that specifically says where it should be included. So that's fine. If you don't, I know that the second notice says to the homeowner, you have the right to hearing. You have to, I think it's filed within 10 days, if I'm not mistaken. It seems to me at that point, the homeowner needs to know that if he can have an attorney present, he should do that for the purposes of using that 10 days, go find an attorney and see whether or not this is worth pursuing. But if you tell me there's another place, I have no problem in accepting that notion. As to whether or not it's a council or a person, again, I don't think this is going to come up that often. I would note that while I have no doubt this board has no problem in accepting counsel or someone else assisting in the hearing, we do need to make sure that any other board in the future, if this is supposed to extend to a permanent state, follows that basic stricture. Relying on this board 15 years down the road, when at least I'm likely to be worm food, I don't think it's that's an inadequate response from my point of view. So again, this is simply informative. That's all it is. I don't know, I would tend to agree it's almost certainly going to be a lawyer that would step in, but I frankly would not want to preempt it. There might be other issues that crop up that I'm not aware of that would give rise to someone else aiding in the presentation. It is the basic burden, and I would assume that the board in laying out a procedure would say the basic requirement is that the homeowner has to present the case, but they have the right to have someone else present to assist them in that function and to participate in the hearing where it's appropriate. But again, all of this is just informative. That's all it is. So if you believe there's, whether it's Elaine or Bruce or anybody else, if you believe that there's a different place where this amendment should be included, I'll accept the friendly amendment to do that. I don't have a problem with that. But all we're trying to do is provide information.
And like, again, I'll sort of speak to that is, my feeling strongly is that it's not appropriate to be in the second letter, that it should be on the informational letter that goes to them with the date and the time of hearing after they've requested one. And the reason we really don't need it as an amendment, but maybe should be part of, just the practice, is that that notification doesn't need to be in our documents by state law. So that, I always think that we should, keep to what we necessarily have to have that coincides with the law in our documents. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be informing the folks who have requested a hearing, what other rights they have. I mean, it happens, in the art committee all the time. They bring in architects or they bring in attorneys, they bring in whomever to help, plead their case for those sorts of things. And I don't see why that would be any different than
Well, not
on these matters.
not to flog a dead horse, but I will make the point that we are talking about penalties which include requiring payment for repairs, which they probably should have done anyway, but payments for repairs, loss of the ability to vote, and loss of access to amenities. And that is a little bit different than pleading a case before the ARC for some sort of revision to their home. So again, I understand, I know it's in the statute, I understand that. I am suggesting that there is no bar in the statute to providing this information. If you don't believe it's in the second notice, tell me where else you want to put it. I don't have a problem with that. But there's no bar in the statute from undertaking that function.
Are you gonna
So
make
I
a?
think,
Go ahead.
just one of the, I think the suggestion from Elaine, I think it's a good one, is in the letter that goes out advising the alleged violator of the time and place of the hearing, you could have language in there to the effect that if you want counsel at the hearing, you can have counsel at the hearing or something to that effect. I think that's a good suggestion.
The same as to whether the meeting is open or closed.
Well, that's a different issue, and I guess I didn't touch on that. My view consistently has been that these hearings should be, under the law, should be open. So we don't ever, I don't believe, want to be suggesting to the alleged violator that it's their choice whether to have these hearings in closed session or not. There, as I've said, I think the board can go into closed session during a hearing in order to obtain legal advice. I also think that it would be appropriate, I can't really think of I can't even conjure the scenario necessarily, but I think it would be appropriate if an alleged violator had some legitimate, specific, personal sensitivity, privacy concern that might come up during the hearing. I mean, one example would be there's some medical information that they think relates to the reasons why they're in violation, or explains the reasons why they're in violation, and they don't want to reveal their personal medical information in an open hearing. It would be appropriate to go into closed session for the board to receive, for example, that information. But again, those things can be dealt with as the case unfolds toward a hearing, rather than putting all of these potential concerns into the second notice or the first notice. And, but certainly we don't want to be adding anything into MO1 or into either of the notices that suggests to the alleged violator that it's their choice whether, and I realize that what way you've written this, there's still consideration of the request by the board, but it still suggests that there's some discretion there by the board to hold the entire hearing in closed session, which I don't believe there is, or that there's some
choice that the alleged violator has to have the hearing in closed session. And I don't believe that right exists either.
Again, I think the language is clear. They can make the request, the board decides, the board's decision follows both statute and our own governing documents. I agree 9 times, or more than that, as often as the meeting would be open. I have no disagreement with that either. I could foresee a situation where frankly, in the middle of the hearing, the property owner, John Jones, says that Sam Smith is my next door neighbor, is the guy who made this complaint, and he's a meth dealer. Well, you've impugned Mr. Smith's integrity, which is one of the reasons why you go into closed session. That should be raised ahead of time. After he speaks, cat's out of the bag. And some sort of, we'll do it case by case to close for part of it, that you've already lost that opportunity. So again, I sort of know what's going to happen, but to me, you're just giving them the opportunity to, I think at the appropriate time, but if you think it should be someplace else, tell me where you want to put it. I'll take it as a friendly amendment, but I think the two go hand in hand.
Well, I think that, and just a finishing point, that part, I think, would, if we're advising the owner that they can request a closed hearing, that would be inconsistent, I believe, with it. My own view, that would be inconsistent with the statute. So I think that would be contrary to law.
All right, well, with that, Steve, are you gonna put a motion up to add this amendment? Are you,
Well, if,
or you withdrawing or?
no, if, not sure what we're calling it after the second notice. But if the suggestion is that the scheduling letter.
Suggested amendment.
Yeah, if the scheduling letter is where this language is appropriate, then I would, fine, I'll amend my amendment to say it should be, whatever term is used, I think.
Yeah, for a friendly amendment, suggesting to this letter that Elaine Bruce talked about, having
Yeah,
language in there.
Right, I just think these provisions should be included in information to the homeowner. So if it's not in the second letter, but it's in the scheduling letter after the request for hearing is provided, then put it in there. And just include that in the resolution.
Okay. So what we're going to go ahead and do is vote on the resolution as is, M01. Yeah, a promotion on it. Yes, exactly. So we'll do a motion to approve a resolution M01 plan of the policy and compliance procedures for the declaration of restrictions and art guidelines violation by Lane. Do I have a second?
Rick,
I'm
I
sorry.
think,
Inquiry.
Okay. I'm
no,
sorry.
I think as an initial matter, you gotta call the vote on his amendment.
Gotcha.
And then if depending on how that goes, then you call the vote on the original.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it would be my amendment as amended by the friendly amendment.
Well, it's an amendment,
It's an
again,
amendment, yeah.
there's no such thing as friendly amendments.
Yeah.
It's an amendment, but you need to call the vote on Steve's amendment to MO1 first. And then,
Yes.
and then see
So
whether or not
we'll
that.
go ahead, put a motion out there for the amendment, for the suggested amendment to M01 by Steve that put forward. Do I have a second?
My amendment,
Or you-
I can't second my own amendment.
No second. So motion fails. Okay, I'm bringing forward the second reading, to vote on the resolution M01, the policy and compliance procedures for declaration restrictions and art guidelines and violations. Do I have a motion to approve as written? Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The reading end and the resolution M01 has been approved. Next, we have a first reading of the revision of resolution M04, the maintenance of lot by Elaine Brady.
Sorry.
M04.
Oh, yes, M04, this will be a first reading. That is just another document that needs to come into alignment with MO1 that we came across. So this would be the first reading for.
So go ahead and move forward. Okay. And then as far as next is the discussion on digital signage. Eileen Brady.
I know this has been highly anticipated for some folks. First, I'd like to thank the Communications Committee because I know this is an item that has come up over the years. And I think one of the things that this current committee has certainly done is to listen to the community concerns, especially, regarding lighting and the commercial look of the signs. And I think that they've accomplished it. And so I do want to have it for consideration to move forward for a lot of reasons. But, I'll start with what the actual proposal will be. First, as you can see by the sign, the picture that's up here, they were able to talk to the contractor who they've been, getting bids and not really bids, but estimates and that sort of thing, that we can actually retrofit the current frames that we use so that you're not going to have that commercial look of the signage. As you go by it at the North Gate or any other location, it's going to look absolutely identical to what we have now. I'll talk about the benefits of moving from digital to from manual signage in a bit, but this is really just to give you an idea of how the sign will look, which is really no different than it does now. The concerns about lighting, because typically on digital signing, you're going to have backlighting. And we will not have any backlighting on those signs. The lighting will actually be exactly like it is now. So there really is absolutely no change in the look and feel of the signs to what we have today. One of the considerations that I think some of us have with the current signage is there's a lot of detractions or, downside from it. And I'm not sure that people even understand how that messaging is being done. There are a dozen of those types of structures throughout our community, all except for two of them are two-sided. Each one of those sides have messaging. The problem is the message on each one is different. So unless you're willing to drive from the point down at the very one end, all the way to the North Gate Bridge and then back, you're never going to see all of the messaging. And it's static. So if you live close to an exit right now, and you typically always go out North Gate or typically always go out South Gate, you're seeing the same one or two messages over and over and over again. In addition, our PR department gets a lot of messaging requests, from our clubs, our organizations, from administrative things that are coming up. And if you notice, as you go down the Parkway now, you really can't read all the stuff that is being loaded onto those signs. I specifically went down the Parkway at 30 miles an hour, not making some people behind me happy, but just to get an idea of what I could reasonably see on the current signage. And you can reasonably read about 3 lines. Most of them now have 6 to 7 because they're trying to get room for all of the different messaging that is needed. And going with digital signs will take care of all of that. One, we're going to be able to consolidate all of our messages from 22 boards onto 4. And what we're looking at is 4 total digital signs, 1 at all 3 of the exits, 1 at Southgate, 1 at Northgate, 1 along Castle Road, and then also 1 at the community center. Those are really the highest trafficked, that's the word, areas, so that it would allow people to really see a lot more signage. In digital, the messages rotate. We're not going to scroll them. That's too distracting. But they will pop up and they really do in the blink of an eye. If you go by some of the signage at the shopping center at Maitland Creek, you'll see, I think there's one person there or business there that does rotate their messaging. And it truly is in a blink of an eye that you're going to see one message or the other. Granted, you're not going to see all the messages every time you go through. But all of us go in and out of the Pines on a regular basis, or we're over to the community center for activities. You're going to see a lot more of that messaging. It's going to be a lot more effective with digital. The other benefits are, you know, if we have late scheduled events, we can actually add them to the cycle. If we have changes, those can be fixed immediately. You know, you're not having to have somebody run out and redo lettering. And that's also one of the biggest issues, I think, for me with the current lettering, is that it really takes, you know, Public Works and Park and Rec, probably combined or even more, to go out every single week and use labor hours to update these signs. They have to remove all the letters. They have to put in new letters. It just, you know, is to me not a productive way to be doing it. In addition to being able to have more effective signage, we will be, and we talk about emergency messaging, and certainly everybody gets emergency notifications and stuff like that on their phones and other things. But for me, you know, I'm thinking if there's an accident on Route 90, it would be awful nice if we know about it to be able to put that up there. It would save people a lot of time than if they're starting to get onto that entrance ramp and they think they're going into the usual Saturday crawl into the beach versus being stuck there for an hour and a half as an accident is getting cleaned up. So those sorts of things can be done. The lettering can be adjusted, you know, so that it can be taller, you know, than what we have now, because the readability sometimes is not great. You know, I have 20/20 vision, and sometimes it, you know, kind of squinting a little bit to see if I can see it before I get to that point. One of the other benefits is that once we put in those 4 signs, we're going to remove all of the signage down the parkway. Except for the one at the yacht club, which will still be maintained by Matterwood Company, which if they prefer to do, and they do it now. They can, you know, put up whatever they need to do. But it then goes back to making our community look like a beautiful residential one instead of part commercial, part residential. It's very serene drive, especially this time of year, driving down the parkway. And you're not going to be distracted. And I know we're talking about bike and walking safety, and, you know, not that an accident has happened in the past, but it's preventable, you know, by not having the distracted driving, by looking at those signs. And personally, I just don't think they belong there. They don't belong in a residential area, messaging signs. Everybody is used to in our commercial corridors having those. And at our 3 entrances, that's really where that is and where, to me, it belongs. And I think over at the community center makes a lot of sense. It's a highly used area between the community center, the farmers market, people walking, coming to the admin building. I'm looking here to see if there's anything else I've missed on this. Oh, and one last thing, because this was something I kind of came across when I was really reading up on digital signing, and I did want to get an idea of what would be the maintenance versus this type of signage now. And 2 things I found out. One, there's actually an 83% retention value from digital signage versus static signage, and it's 400% more effective. This was in a study done by Arbitron. Arbitron is the gold standard of marketing research. And so there is a very big need for this. It is one other tool in our toolbox. Yes, do we have other things? We have a quarterly newsletter. We have a lot more active. Our PR department does a great job of notifying people on Facebook and other types of messaging. It's just something else in the toolbox. And you know, we still have to recognize that we have residents who aren't on the phones all day long. You know, they're checking for their messages once in a while, but it's not 24/7 for them like there is for some other folks. And the maintenance, I was actually very surprised because, you know, I had, heard some comments about, oh my goodness, the maintenance on this. As it turns out, it's no different than what we would have to do on our current signage. You wipe it down with a soft cloth with Dawn, you know, or some sort of, non-abrasive cleanser. And actually, I think it turns out to be a benefit because we'll only be cleaning 4 signs and not 22. So, any other questions or discussion points that, board members want to make?
Good question. You good, John?
Yep.
Okay, what we'd like to do is, put a motion out there to approve to have the general manager secure some proposals and some bids from a cost, perspective. On that, this is not saying that we are approving this, but we just want to move, motion to move forward to have our GM, take a look at the cost and see where we're at standpoint. So putting a motion out there. Do I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
All right. Any opposed? Abstentions?
I have a question, guys, just to make sure. Are we talking getting proposals and everything for 1 sign or for 4?
Before.
That's the board saying 4. Okay.
And I do know that, and I guess it's a side that, when you talked that we thought we could possibly get 1 done this year, it's as an unbudgeted item. And then, I have asked the communications committee that based on whether this was approved today to go forward, for them to fund it, in next year's budget for the remaining 3. And then again, once all 4 of the signs are up,
Okay.
we'll take down on the others.
Okay, great. Thanks, Elaine. All right, next up is appointments. What I'd like to do is put a motion out there to approve all at once, if we're good with that. So I'd like to put a motion out there for Brian Burgess for first term environmental and natural assets, Rob Kiesling of second term strategic planning, Fritz Lanier, second term golf, Jerry Murphy, first term strategic planning, Donald Niederostek, second term budget and finance, Ann O'Connor is a third term environmental natural assets, Ann Shockley, a second term of golf, and Don Wolski, first term environmental and natural assets. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? All are approved. Have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Meeting is ended. Thank you.